Okay, so I'm going to be asking you questions about the BLM movement. My first question is, why do you think it is important to be an advocate for BLM?
I think it's important to be an advocate for Black Lives Matter because, so many people are oppressed by it. For as long as I can remember, every person that I was around that was a person of color, it didn't matter if they were Black, Hispanic, any race other than white, I felt that they were always judged differently. I mean, even now I work in retail, and where I work, I feel like people treat them differently when they should all be treated equal.
hmm Have you had like instances where somebody's like, "Oh, watch that person," and you think it's because like it's racially motivated?
I have, especially at my workplace. I'm not gonna like say where I work just to keep the privacy of that, but I feel like we have like a front end like store protector, like they watch for things like that, and I feel like sometimes they more so point out people of color more than white people. So I feel like that could play a part of it.
Okay. What about the BLM movement matters to you the most?
I think like most of it matters, or I think the biggest thing that matters to me about the whole movement is, just we just want to see justice for Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, all of the people that, you know, have been so like injustice, you know what I mean? Like they didn't have any say or anything, and they were shot or they were, pinned down without any, you know, reason really.
Okay. Why does it matter to you so much? Like, is there anybody in your family that you feel like you're standing up for?
Well, personally, I'm the only one in my family that's a person of color. So I feel like with being a person of color in a family full of people who are white, who don't really have any background of any, different race, it's kind of my job to be that person that stands up for all of them. And I do have family members who think that Black Lives Matter is a joke. And it's hard for me to sit there and, post things on social media trying to get, raise awareness for it when I have family that oppose it, just doesn't go for it and they think it's a joke and they think it doesn't matter.
When you post things, do they harass you? Like, does your own family harass you?
I've never like my immediate family, they are full on Black Lives Matter supporters, activists. We've been to protests. My first protest wasn't my first protest actually was in 2018. It was about the children at the border.
Yes.
So it wasn't, about Black Lives Matter at first. And then when everything happened with Breonna Taylor and George Floyd,
Yeah.
it's like, wow, this has been going on and we haven't really, you know, realized it. Now I have ended up muting some family on social media because of all the all the things that they post, and they'll say something to me and I'm like, listen, we have our differences, but I don't want to stand here and just see all the stuff that you post that's negative about it.
Um, how would you describe the protests that you attended, like regarding COVID guidelines and stuff like that?
When I went to the protest in, I think it was either Birmingham, no, it was Huntsville. When I went to the protest in Huntsville,
Mhm.
everyone wore a mask. I didn't see anyone without a mask. Social distancing, my family, personally, we social distance because we didn't want to be, too close to people. But people try to social distance in groups that they had come with. Um, it's kind of hard to social distance at gatherings like that. But when you wear a mask, I feel like it sort of helps protect more than without wearing a mask. It's kind of like at the courthouse. You can tell clearly what side a person is on solely based on if they're wearing a mask or not.
Yeah.
So I feel like with COVID, um, a lot of the Black Lives Matter protests I've been to, people have worn their mask and respected social distancing.
Okay. Um, what are your thoughts on attending protests during COVID? Like, do you think it was the safest thing to do, or do you think it was like the smartest thing to do?
Well, at first, when we attended the first protest we had ever been to, it was back in, I want to say June or July, the one in Huntsville. My family was really adamant on going because of COVID. We're still scared of it because, my aunt is in the hospital with COVID. She was in the hospital. And that was before we went, or that was after we went to the protest. But, with the cases being so bad today, personally, I wouldn't go back to another protest. I'm already risking myself going to work. So I I think, everyone has their differences on how they view COVID. Some of them just don't believe in it. Some of them really do believe in it. But when it's for a great cause like Black Lives Matter, sometimes you have to put that risk out there. But I wouldn't advise everyone putting themselves at risk.
Mm-hmm. Did going to a BLM protest affect your political views?
I've always been on the Democratic side. My family's Democratic. We all voted for the Democratic Party. Um, Now I think it more so like it kind of, I don't know how to describe it. Like my views on my political views kind of did change when I noticed that our current president wasn't really doing anything toward the act. And with all the deaths and COVID, with all the COVID related deaths, I feel like I wouldn't want to totally blame him, but I feel like it's more of his fault than he hasn't really, done anything about it.
Hate crimes have increased.
Yeah. But after seeing Democratic Joe Biden, his side of COVID, it's like he wants to enforce masks. He doesn't want people to come into stores without masks on. And so I feel like the Black Lives Matter movement did kind of help my political views a little bit because of each party's side on how they viewed Black Lives Matter.
Mhm.
I think that's a kind of yes answer to
Have
that.
you lost any friends or family, like lost contact with them because you support the movement?
Yeah, I've I've ended up losing a lot. My when we graduated, my aunt didn't congratulate me at all on it. I was so close to my aunt. My aunt, she doesn't think Black Lives Matter is real. She thinks it's like some left party thing, and she didn't even congratulate me on graduating or anything. I think that's because I really do post my feelings on the movement on social media any chance I get. So I've lost some family members over it. My grandmother and I really don't talk anymore because of it.
Mm,
So it's like, it wasn't my side of it. It was more so their side because they just wanted to be the pettiness, of the whole situation. That was pretty much all the people I've, like family members that I've lost.
what do you think about the people that go around saying that all lives matter or that white lives matter?
I think that is more so a problem because um all lives matter can't matter, or you know what I mean, that saying people say. I feel like people didn't really start saying that until we started saying Black Lives Matter. We started saying that. We started, you know, at like showing our feelings towards it, how we think that police brutality is actually a thing and it's not fake. Whenever I hear someone say Blue Lives Matter, I'm like, I mean, yeah, policemen, they matter, but there's still some police out there who are terrible people and that don't get any repercussions towards them whenever they do terrible things. But whenever I hear like White Lives Matter or All Lives Matter, it's like obviously you don't think all lives matter when you're sitting here not wearing a mask, going shopping,
Mhm.
and it's ridiculous.
What do you think about, you know how there's white supremacists and there's supremacists in every race? What do
Yeah.
you think about the black supremacists that are kind of at the top of the BLM movement? Do you think that it's fair for every other race, considering the fact that black supremacists obviously think they're better than every other race and that they have
Um.
more rights than others just because they have gone through slavery?
Yeah. I don't really know how I feel about that. Like it when you talk about slavery, it becomes a sensitive subject. You have people who have family who have been slaves, and generations it's passed down. And I feel like Black people, they really do, like, they face a lot of challenges. But whenever they have someone of their same race being on, the side where, oh, well, Black lives don't matter, it's, I feel like that kind of affects them too,
Mhm.
especially with the whole courthouse incident in Albertville.
Oh yeah, big time.
Yeah.
Uh,
So,
what do you think about statistics and how statistics show that only 1% of cops have ever done anything that is racially motivated? Do you think that that still justifies all the rioting? Because people have said yes to justifying it because they're angry. But
I, well, whenever the rioting happened in Minneapolis, Um, I was kind of on the fence about it. I feel like people shouldn't have been so violent and burn down buildings because I feel like when we show peace and we're peaceful with our protests, it kind of shows people, hey, you know, they're not doing anything bad. They're not tearing down buildings. But when you have um, that one group that riots and just shoplifts and all that, I feel like it kind of puts a bad rap on the BLM activists. And so when that happens, everyone assumes, oh, they're going to be really violent, which
Mhm.
I feel like isn't the case. But I feel like there isn't, like, not, people say all cops are bad. Personally, I don't think all cops are bad, but I do know that there is that amount, or all the people, like all the cops that are racially motivated. And I mean, you could tell with the whole George Floyd situation that you can tell that was kind of racially motivated.
Okay, this is gonna kind of sort of switch the topic, but it's still about the Black Lives Mattering. Are you pro-choice or pro-life?
Personally, I am pro-choice. I believe that a woman should have the right to her own body.
Okay, well, if you take a step back and look at statistics, it shows that more black babies are being killed. Shouldn't their lives matter just as much as
Um, so like, okay, wait, restate that question.
since more black babies are being killed in abortion clinics and it was abortions were initially created to get rid of black babies, do you think that, well, babies, because I don't consider them babies, but do you think that it's fair to say that all Black Lives Matter but continue to have abortion considering the statistics
I feel
that
like
black
when
babies?
you think about what how you feel about it,
Mhm.
I feel like statistics really doesn't. I don't know because I didn't know that. So I didn't know that history on it. I didn't know that that more black babies were being killed
Mhm.
with abortion. Personally, abortion to me is like, under certain circumstances, a woman should be able to have one
Mhm.
because it's her right to. Now, if it's, I feel like you know if you get knocked up and you can't afford to take care of a baby, you're gonna hold that grudge either way. But I feel like you should keep the baby because it was your mistake. But other circumstances, like if you're poor and you can't take care of the baby, I think you should be able to have an abortion.
Mhm.
I have expressed myself on that many times and I've gotten shut down about it.
Mhm.
But I mean, that's just how I feel. I feel like the adoption, putting up kids for adoption doesn't really help either because a lot of kids don't even get adopted. I was one of the lucky kids that got adopted, but a lot of kids don't get adopted. A lot of them stay in foster care or whatever until they're 18, then they're out on their own and they're homeless. So I feel like that doesn't really help with population control at all.
That is true. Do you think everyone should support the movement?
Um, I know personally, I feel like more people should support it. I know not everyone's gonna support it. There's like billions of people in the United States. But I personally, I feel like a lot more people should support it than not support it, if that makes sense.
Yes, I think that I saw this thing the other day where it said that Alabama had done this like this survey to see how many people thought that slavery should come back, and the number was like so high, and I was like, imagine fighting for Black lives here in Alabama.
Oh yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, people just
But
won't listen.
I mean, I feel like Black Lives Matter should have been more prominent because back in 1991, Rodney King was made an example because he was a part of like police brutality. He was beaten for almost no reason by police, and I feel like that if Black Lives Matter would have been more of a bigger group back then and continued on throughout the 21st century, I honestly feel like um we wouldn't have as big as a problem as we have now with it.
Yeah. What do you think about all the misleading information about the movement?
I feel like the misleading information gives people a window to just make up more stuff about it.
Mhm.
Like, for example, at the courthouse, like a few Wednesdays ago, they were holding a protest about the monuments being taken down. And someone on the other side had said that there was going to be a drive-by with guns on the Black Lives Matter activist side. And it wasn't even true. They just said that, and the cops are called. So I feel like, when you share so much misleading information, it kind of like opens a window for people to believe things that aren't even true.
Hmm. What do you think about the police using excessive force?
I feel like police should be trained not to do that. I feel like, you know, there was an instance where a boy was walking to his neighborhood and was shot and killed because he was black by police. I feel like I feel like they should be able to use, um, you know, what they use, but I feel like they shouldn't have to shoot someone 7 times for, getting back in their car. I feel like they should use other things like restraint or, a taser or even shooting them in the leg once. But like you shouldn't shoot someone 7 times in the back because they wanted to check on their kids while they were pulled over. That just shouldn't happen.
Yeah. Um, what are you hoping that the movement will accomplish?
I'm hoping that the movement will accomplish, peace and equality between races. I feel like I feel like from what I see where I work, I feel like people treat, like the Haitians, because there's such a big population now in Albertville, the Haitians and Hispanics.
Well,
They
I
treat
went
them.
to Ross the other day and I was going in the store because I was going to return something, and these three Haitian boys came up to me and they were so close to me that I could feel them breathing down my neck, and they were saying things in a different language, but one of them literally tried to grab things that they shouldn't have grabbed. And I was like,
That is terrible. I'm so sorry that happened to you.
yeah. And then I was like, I guess this is a reason that people like take a step back and they're like, if it comes down to statistics, it's like this amount harasses, and obviously if the amount's higher, if the percentage is higher, it's going to make them all look bad. But
Yeah,
what do you think about when they talk about statistics and they're like only 1% of cops have done anything that is racially motivated, and then it's like, but black on black crime is still so high? Do you think it's fair to compare those two?
I don't think it's fair because a lot of cops have gotten away with things they shouldn't have gotten away with.
Mm-hmm.
And so you don't know those statistics are mostly, I feel like they're like biased because we don't know. But whenever a person of color does something wrong, it's like, okay, well, they're terrible people. The whole race is a terrible race. Like, no. Personally, I've never had, the instance where I was judged by my color because of, I grew up in a white family. But it's still to me, you know, what if I didn't grow up in a white family? I mean, it wouldn't matter. It still hurts me to see people who are, people of color to be so misjudged, and it shouldn't happen. Honestly, people should treat people with the same respect they would treat someone who is white.
Okay, what do you think about stereotypes? Like, if a officer pulls somebody over and it's whether he's black, white, mixed, Hispanic, what if everybody knows stereotypes, correct? Like, some stereotypes, like
Yeah,
stereotypes with the whole Hispanic speaking rapist, or black
drug
people having
dealers.
anger issues,
Yeah,
or white people being crackheads. Um, what do you think when it comes down to stereotypes? If a black person goes in their car to pull something out without giving a heads up, do you think it's fair to shoot because they don't really know if they're going to pull out a gun? And
I
if it
don't.
comes down to
I don't think it's fair to shoot, honestly, because yeah, statistics and stereotypes. We shouldn't judge people based off of stereotypes. You have to give people a chance. Like if someone, like for instance, I work where I work, and some of the cashiers don't treat people of color how they should be treated, and that's equal as everyone. Um, I feel like you know people shouldn't really think about stereotypes. Like I remember seeing this one thing where this person said, we shouldn't let any people of color in the border, like Hispanics shouldn't come through the border because they're all drug dealers and they're all rapists. And I'm like, you don't know that. That's just a stereotype. That's just something you've been taught. You don't, you can't really judge a person until you know them.
Mhm.
I've met people who on the outside you think, oh, they're like the perfect person, and then I see their actions. I'm like, oh, so we went to the store and you started stealing stuff. I would have never thought of you like that. So I feel like stereotypes do play a big role in it, but I also feel like, cops shouldn't be so quick to pull out their guns on someone because of a stereotype.
Um, do you think it's fair that the BLM movement is really big right now, but there's still Hispanics in cages? Like, I know you have to fight for both issues, but do you think it's fair that one is getting more attention than the other?
Honestly, I don't think it's fair. Um, like I get each side of it, but I honestly feel like that, justice for the, Hispanics at the border, I feel like they should have an equal justice too. I feel like they should have equal say. I feel like they should have like an equal big community coming together and protesting on them too because they deserve to come here freely. You don't know their situation back home. You don't know what's going on. So I feel like with the Black Lives Matter, um, the Black Lives Matter movement, I feel like that, we should have a big movement for the border because, it's just, I feel like, honestly, I feel like people at the border should have, equal rights as the Black Lives Matter. But, it's not really a big topic at the moment.
Mm.
But I feel like, honestly, I wish that whenever people protested Black Lives Matter, they would also protest, um, you know, people coming into the United States. I feel like that should happen.
Do you think that Biden, well, as of right now, Biden winning, do you think that that's a huge win for the Hispanics? Well, any race that's struggling due to their skin color?
I'm not really sure. We won't know until he's inaugurated and he gets into the White House. I would hope so that with him being in office, it would really help things. But at the same time, with Kamala Harris being a person of color, you would maybe something will happen. We just can't tell right now.
What do you think about the people that support Trump and say they also support BLM, but hate crimes have increased, racially motivated hate crimes have increased by a lot?
I feel like people who support Trump as well as support the Black Lives Matter movement, I feel like they're more closed up about it. They don't really go waving their flags everywhere. I feel like they just keep to themselves. I've met Trump supporters who support Black Lives Matter. I have a friend who supports Trump, who voted for Trump, but she's a big activist in Black Lives Matter, and I don't judge her for that. But she doesn't sit there and say, "Oh, well, he's the greatest president. If you don't like him, you can leave." I feel like there's a difference between people that say you can leave the United States if you don't like your president, than people who just keep it to themselves and don't really say anything about it.
Yeah, I understand that completely. Let's see. Do you think that since Black Lives Matter started, well, when it kind of like started really picking up, it was due to the looting. Do you think that considering all the racism, do you think that that got more people and they were like, wow, black people are really going out and doing this? Like, that
I
makes
feel
sense to
like,
people.
you know, because like the first that I really ever focused on Black Lives Matter was when the Minneapolis, when that happened. And I feel like that kind of set like a bad rep for all Black Lives Matter activists. Unique, that's it, I think that's her name. Unique, she, is a coordinator here in Albertville. Albertville is her hometown, and people tell her, well, you can't have a say in anything because you don't even live here. Because she lives in Mobile, I think. And I feel like, honestly, like the rioting and looting kind of set a bad rep for you know, the movement because it was one of the first major things in the movement. I don't believe that the rioting should have happened, but with the rioting and protesting, I feel like it has given Black Lives Matter, more of a, you know,
Mhm.
more of a say in things. Like some people think of Black Lives Matter and they think negative. Some people think of Black Lives Matter and they think positive. Honestly, I feel like more people should be activists towards the Black Lives Matter movement.
Well, I'm going to thank you for supporting it because I support it, but I'm not that open about it because nobody in my family supports it.
Yeah, I
But
feel that the only people in my family that supports it are my immediate family, like the people that live in this house. Other than that, there's like no one else.
I don't have a single soul in my family that supports it. And I've expressed it. I was like, why don't y'all support it? And they're just like, it's just like they're just rioting and looting. And I was like, that was literally 3% of like the protests.
Yeah, like
The other
literally
97%.
97% of protests are peaceful. And if it becomes violent, it's because of the other side. That's pretty much it from what I've seen.
Okay, well, that was it. That's all the questions I have. So I'm gonna stop the recording.